You are listening to Shameless Stories. This is Nicola Humber, founder of the Unbound Press, publishing imprint for magical unbound women and proud sponsor of this podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Shameless Stories, the podcast that lifts the lid on shame and enables us to find the power within those shame stories. Now, it's taken me about 3 attempts to get going on this, so I do apologise if I start laughing. I would love to invite the playful, the magical Debra Kilby to join me in this week's episode of Shameless Stories. I'm really hoping you can speak better than I can today. Debra is an author, a healer, a spirit baby medium, and a soul plan coach. I am going to hand the floor to you, Debra, and compose myself.
It's just really
for me, I swear.
I love it. It's like when you were at school and you weren't supposed to be laughing and then you just stop. You can't stop. But it's a great way to open the podcast with some laughter, especially when we can be diving into some topics that feel very far from something to laugh at. But it's good. What I feel is that the spirit babies are actually joining us here right now. And if you've just joined and you don't know anything about spirit baby, just let that go for a minute. But it's just these energies of the babies who are in another realm. They're not on the earth yet, but I just feel they've just brought in this joy energy and this playful energy, as they always do, because we're likely going to be talking about journeys to motherhood, a baby loss, termination, struggling to conceive. And these are really really deep, really hard experiences, but the babies have a very different perspective around that, and I think they really want to just open the space with a vibe that I hope that that is shared not only just with us two sitting here unable to stop laughing, but I just think they're bringing in this infectious joy to lift the energy before we start going into those topics. So really, if anyone is listening to this and has been through any of those experiences or in those experiences, that your babies are joy. Like they hold no shame, they hold no unforgiveness, they hold no guilt, they hold no blame, they hold love and they hold joy, no matter what you are being in. That's we're going to talk about that, but what the babies are coming in immediately with, before we even start talking about who they are, is that they are absolutely fine, they are joyful, and they are just rippling their love and joy to all of us, and all of us who might be feeling very far away from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because the last podcast I recorded was with the Joy Queen, Cat Googe. So I also feel like that's like, it's all about choosing joy. Like there is an aspect of, like you were saying, there is this kind of shame, this taboo nature around some of the topics that you've just very briefly touched on, like child loss. They're horrible. They're very hard subjects to talk about, and yet they happen all the time. Miscarriage, children dying in the womb, choosing to not come into this world. It's like, it's just very, very, you don't really see people talking about that. And yet that's the reality. It does happen all the time, and it causes so much grief for the mother. Yeah, I just wonder I think it would be a really great opportunity for you to sort of speak into what shame feels, what it means to you, and how that word feels with you, and then perhaps maybe a little bit more about your story. That's how we connected. So yeah.
Yeah, shame. Oh my goodness. And just on that, like, we can choose joy. So how I'm shown it is that joy is obviously a frequency of feeling and energy. Guilt and blame is an energy. So we have access to it all. Just because we're feeling guilt, blame, or shame acknowledge that, just be in that. You're in alignment when you're feeling that, but also keep in the back of my mind, oh, okay, I also have access to this, I see them like bubbles, okay, or waves. I'm choosing the wave of joy right now, or I'm choosing the wave of guilt right now, because there's no good, or one's not better than the other. It's just what we're experiencing, and that's when we're most in alignment, but always knowing that we're in what we're in at the time, but we also have everything else is also available to us when we're ready to choose it. When we want to choose something else, it's possible. And that's the message that babies are also reminding me of, is that honestly, they're making me smile. It's like we're here in joy, feel us in joy. Yes, they understand your grief, your guilt, your shame. They get it, but they don't feel it. They just want to share we're also here in joy. So, we can choose that wave of joy, or we can choose the wave of guilt. Either one is not right or wrong, but what are we learning from that guilt? Why is that guilt there? They want us to go deeper into why is that guilt there, and feel it, and just allow that to bubble up, because it's not just these big emotions are not just coming from the situation that you're in now or had been in. They're coming from a long, long time ago. They've been there since the beginning of time, if you like. So we're just kind of moving and processing our way through those. Shame is so fascinating. Like spirits say, there is no shame here. There is no shame present. Shame is literally man-made. It's a trauma response. And there's a whole big message in my book, Rosa's Choice, about shame, and how it's a control mechanism of someone saying, well, you're wrong. And then because, when someone makes you wrong, or there's humiliation and all of those tactics that are very controlling mechanisms. So it's very much man-made, and it's very much around a sense of power, and who has power over someone, and who are we giving our power to, because that person's made me feel shame. And it's not to blame that person, but that you recognize, okay, I'm feeling shame in myself because of what that person has judged me on or says. So, okay, just take responsibility for that shame, that feeling that you're feeling. Why is it there? It's not just there because someone said something. That what that person said has brought it to light, so you can feel it. So it's there. But it's not because you're wrong. It's not because there's something bad. It's not. It's man-made trauma. It's a trauma response. So love that part. In terms of my own shame, my gosh, I just, it's kind of always been present. It's always been present. At school, I would never be the one to put my hand up and speak. I would be ashamed of myself, like who I was, even though I didn't know who I was, it was just an energy, that was a feeling that was present, but I didn't really know why. But it was on my journey to motherhood, which I had 3 miscarriages, and then a medical termination with my daughter Rosa. But also before all that, I'd had a termination when I was younger, and that was so shameful. That really I couldn't escape the shame then. And I've gone into that and into that and into that. What is that shame? What is that shame? And it was really about visibility, being seen. And underneath it, this feeling of I'm inherently bad. And I don't want people to see that I'm bad, because I know I'm good, but I feel like I'm bad. I feel like I've done something bad, or I am bad. And that was there long before the whole motherhood journey. But it's definitely been a journey of exploring shame. Like, what is that control mechanism? Because especially on a journey to motherhood, we can feel shame for choosing to release our babies. We can feel shame for a miscarriage and loss, as if there's something, we failed in some way. And we can feel shame for not yet meeting our babies in our arms, for not getting pregnant yet. So there's, what is that underneath that? And it's the shame that we have, the wound that we have as women, as control of being controlled in our choices. We're the creators, we're the portals that allow the portal between life and death. We enable energy, our babies, to come into form. We're the portal of that. We're the creators of that. And the big kind of spiritual picture around shame is, and around creation, is that the masculine, let's not we're not blaming the men here, but the masculine energy long time ago couldn't bear the fear of being inconsequential. Women are the creators, therefore we need to control creation. We need to control women's choices. We need to control how they're creating and when, and it's got to be in our power. And we're going to humiliate and create this wound of shame. So it's a control mechanism. I don't know if any of that's just made sense. But I'm just
I'm absolutely I completely resonate. I think there'll be listeners as well that will also feel that, in that, you know, we've all got very similar. The more people that I interview on this podcast, the more similarities there are in the wounding. You know, I'm not good enough. I feel shame around even being who I am. So there's this somewhere along the line, regardless of whether it's at school or whether it's friendships or whatever, there's been that we've chipped away at the purity that is the golden light of babies and joy. And, you know, you just see it in that film, Inside Out. The baby arrives, it's made of joy and then sadness, and then and that's it. You know, that's how we form, isn't it? And I just, you know, as you were talking, I was getting that visual from the film. Like, go and see it if you've not seen it, Inside Out. It's a kid's film, but it's brilliant because it really shows how we develop and how we build we create the metaphorical onion of layering of the stories that we then spend the rest of our lives unraveling again.
Yes.
Now I'm waffling. I think what you were saying about the shame piece around, I love the way that you talk about releasing the babies rather than the termination. You know, it's about a lot to do with the language, isn't it? It's very harsh, the language that is used around motherhood and you know, giving birth and losing children. And, you know, your own personal story that you talk about in Rosa's Choice is, I guess other people might find it shameful what you went through with Rosa. Do you want to share a little bit about Rosa? Because I know you have none around this because you've written the book, right?
Yes, I've written that. Yeah, and you know, writing it all through is very cathartic as well. But certainly with Rosa, so I'd experienced the 3 miscarriages, so much wanted babies, pregnant again, and I kind of knew, like, well, actually, I didn't know I kind of knew I was intuitive, but didn't, you know, you don't take it anywhere. You're just like, oh, it's kind of normal. But I heard Rosa, I heard this voice when I was pregnant with Rosa, and she said, Mummy, I'm sick. And I thought, oh my gosh, no, it's just because I've had the miscarriages and I'm worried and all of this stuff. But, you know, eventually all the tests, yes, she was really not very well. And so rather than, you know, having that choice taken away from me through her, you know, just naturally with a miscarriage, I had to then face the decision of, oh my gosh, I'm in charge of life and death here. That this is who we are as women. You know, we are the portal between of the worlds. But obviously I wasn't thinking that at the time. I was like, oh my God, how can I possibly make that decision for my baby? And there was lots of thought, but we didn't know if she was going to survive in the womb for how much longer, or if she did, what her quality of life would be, what our quality of life would be, and my eldest son, you know, like, how would she experience life? And there was this deep knowing, however much my mind, my heart, everything was screaming, my God, I love my baby. There was this very deep, no, I am going to have to make that choice. And that choice broke me like that. It really broke me. You know, I really honestly thought I would never recover from that. What kind of woman was I? What kind of mother was I? What are people going to think? I was working for a Catholic, haven't got any affiliation to any religion, but I was working for a Catholic organization at the time. I couldn't tell anyone because I was in so much fear that I would get the sack. I was in so much shame. I didn't tell anyone. One minute at work I was pregnant, the next minute I wasn't. And I think I told one person at work. I was so filled with shame of what a bad person I was. And, you know, this went on for quite a few months. And it was someone at work actually who announced their pregnancy, and I felt this split second of joy for them. And then immediately, what about me? And where's my baby? Why did I have to go through all this? Why am I being punished? What have I done? And it's because I had a termination when I was younger. I'm being punished. It's all my fault. Like, it's because I am such a bad person. All this, unraveling in my mind of all of these awful beliefs that we hold about ourselves. And after that pregnancy announcement from that colleague, I had to just go home, and I just sat feeling all the bitterness, all the shame, the guilt, the punishment, all of the stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I am not the woman who can't be happy for another woman. That is not who I am. And then I heard this voice saying, well, who is that woman who is not all of these big feelings, who isn't bitter, who isn't sad, who feels like she can't carry on with life? Who is that woman who's not feeling all of that stuff? I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. There's a part of me that knows none of that is true. That's what I'm experiencing. That's what I'm believing. That's what I'm feeling. It's very true. But there's a part of me that knows there's something else going on. There's a part of me that I am not that person that I was feeling. So who is that person? And then I went on this huge kind of journey of healing and self-development, and so many different synchronicities. Once I kind of committed to, I'm going to find that me amid all of this stuff that's going on. I'm going to find that me who just feels amazing, who feels true, that inner self. And so went on this incredible journey. Lots of synchronicities I'd never heard of. I'd heard of mediums, but I'd never been to one, or all of that stuff. But I'd met someone on the tube, and I was reading the book. It was my counselor at the time. She gave me the book Many Lives, Many Masters, all about past lives. And I read it and thought, it just sparked something up in me, like, oh my God, this is what's true. There's much more going on. And then this guy on the tube, and you never speak to anyone on the tube in London, he said, oh, I've read that book. I go to this place in Balham, and they have mediums. And I said, oh, I wonder if I can connect with Rosa. So they've kind of started this journey of what's going on behind the scenes. And, just to skip ahead a while, I was on the tube. Lots of things happen on the tube. And I'd just been out with some work colleagues, and for the first time shared the truth of what had happened. And she said to me, wow, how do you feel about it now? And I said, I feel so grateful. Rosa's changed my life. And I was so shocked that I could be grateful for something that had, really nearly broken me. It's like, oh my God. And I sat on the tube writing down, how can I possibly be grateful for something, how can I be grateful? And then I felt this energy in the whole tube changes. From my perspective, it just changed around me. And I saw Rosa, heard her, and said, we're going to write a book together. And you're going to help, or we're going to help women. We're going to help women. No, it's not their fault. There is something so much more going on behind the scenes. And together, we're going to empower women through these experiences. And I said, well, if we're going to write a book, show me the front cover. And then, of course, the front cover managed to kind of go into the designers. I managed to, and that is that, I know you can't see it on a podcast, but that's the front cover that Rosa showed me on that day. So this was my journey coming out of shame. So I'd shared it in a women's group for the first time. I shared it with my colleague there. Then I shared it in a women's group. Then and there was only love and compassion, as I would have love and compassion for someone who had been through that. But I couldn't give that to myself at the time, because I was in so much of the belief that I was a bad person. So that's kind of, and in terms of connecting with when she said we're going to write the book, I said, oh, I need to find a medium who can channel her, who can tell her side of the story. And I went to 3 mediums, and they all said her energy's too high. I can only connect with her through my guides. I can't connect with her. I was like, oh my God. And I'd started kind of channeling with the soul plans that I was doing, because I can tap into people's soul energy and their soul plan. And I said, I wonder if I can connect with Rosa. I wonder if I could channel her. And boom, there she was. And and her biggest message to me, and there's been a lot, generally for everyone, not just for me, was I came in unwhole in order to make you whole. You were only living kind of a half life. You didn't know the truth of you. And that was why I'm here. And that's why it had to be your choice. And my book is called Rosa's Choice, because the choice that we make, it's our responsibility. It's our choice. But it's knowing you have a choice, because women, if we go back however long in our conversation that was ago, about the choice, our choices of creation, when we create but that the masculine needs control over creation because they're so scared of it. We are reclaiming our choice. We know we have the choice over our bodies, over our mental health. We have the choice. We remember that as women, we have choice. And what the babies say about termination is there is no such thing as termination. You cannot terminate energy. It's not in our human power to terminate energy. But what is terminated is the beliefs that we have about ourselves. Just got a little line in my book that I wanted to, for it's through the experience of this pain and of this shame and the experience of this loss of your baby, your values, your beliefs of thou shalt not kill, your loss of self and who you thought you were, because this is what your so-called termination does. It does not terminate your baby soul, for this is not a law of the universe. It terminates instead many things about yourself, and this is what termination is for. And if you are not ready to experience this termination, this death of your old ways, your old patterns and programs and who you thought yourself to be, then we do not recommend this experience for you. Anyway, there's a whole big message in there. I don't know if I'll stop talking for a minute. But basically, it's about reclaiming our choice. And, when I was tuning into the Roe versus Wade decision and all the, awful women's choices. And they said it's a great shock that one's own physical and mental health and well-being is not in charge of you, but seemingly in charge of others. And then went on to say the woman is made to feel responsible for the life of another, but then they aim to take that responsibility away from them. This is inconsistent. So they wish to take on the responsibility for the unborn child while simultaneously blaming the mother for their need to do so. So it's all about, really taking this choice away from women.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other podcast, that whole discussion around what is happening with that at the moment. And, there's so many other, I mean, we've talked about this off camera, off podcast, about what's going on with women and their fertility journeys, with the jabs, with our menstrual cycles, with microplastics in our bodies that are causing things to happen earlier and later. And there's a lot of interference, I guess. There's a lot of interference in our bodies. And like you were saying about the termination piece, I had to make the decision as well, and at the time I felt very selfish for making that decision, but I knew in my heart that I wasn't ready. I was young. I wanted to live life. I wanted to be a bit wiser before I brought another being into the world. I knew that about myself, and that's the choice that I made. And I think, again, there is this, I don't know, that it's almost like you're forced to push through because that happened to you. It's almost like, actually, if you know that about yourself, that's okay. I think it's just having the permission that you can do this if this is what happens to you. And I think, again, that's another word that's come up a lot in recent podcasts, is giving yourself permission to do what's right for you. And, the fact that Rosa had communicated with you kind of gave you that permission as well, right? It kind of made it okay that both of you made the choice together that this wasn't going to work. But then you had the happy ending. You had another child and he's great. Of that. I just find it fascinating when I talk to you, because, is the root of everything. Like, we are all created in that way. We all come from, we don't know where. And I love the idea, and I guess that the other thing that probably, just to like pull on another thread of shame, is the fact that, you know, you communicate with spirit babies. And what I find fascinating is we have films like Soul and we have films like Inside Out that talk about the possibility that there is something bigger than us. And yet when you are faced with that in reality, there's still a little bit of judgment around the fact that you speak to, yeah, we can talk to ghosts, but why would we talk to babies? Do you know what I mean? It's like, hang on a minute, it's all right. It's acceptable to have, you know, Anne Boleyn haunting Hampton Court, but it's not acceptable for you to talk to babies that don't even exist. That's another point that I find fascinating.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's, yeah. And that's, you know, that's been a whole, I mean, I've been doing this now for, you know, like almost 10 years. And at first it's like, oh, of course you're going to question yourself. Yes, question yourself. You know, you, it's good to question yourself. Is this happening? Is this real? You know, I was in and out. Is this really happening? And it's such a sensitive topic as well. You don't want to go and saying, yes, I can talk to your babies. I know, yes, it's a massive responsibility. It's a huge responsibility, actually. And a position of trust, that someone's trusting you with their story, with their experiences, and trusting you to connect with the energy of their baby soul. You know, that's massive in itself. But the babies, of course, I mean, imagine a world where we all felt seen and heard before we'd even arrived, that we had a sense of who we were. A most recent message from Spirit Baby is they want us to know what their soul plan is, what their purpose is, because, you know, it's always a surprise. They'll be what they'll be. This is changing. They want us to know what they are coming for, so we can help them on their mission, on their soul plan, on their journey. That's a big shift. But it took me 2 years, I would say, before I actually felt very more comfortable sharing about the babies. But their messages are so profound that I can't, why am I getting in the way of that? That's my own stuff. And it's still my own stuff of visibility, you know, that's an ongoing thing. But their messages are so profound and so important for us in understanding the world and what is going on with life as a whole, but also our individual journeys. And you were mentioning Rosa's choice, because it was her choice as well. And this is the main point, is you know, especially around, well, not especially around termination, but termination as a source of shame, is that your babies knew what was going to happen. Yeah, I can't say 100%, but all the ones that I've connected with, they've got their own reasons for arriving in that way, knowing they weren't meant to stay. Most of them are coming in to the, you know, and I don't know after your termination what changed, but they're coming in to move us out of a path that we're on, that we're not meant to be on. A lot of the babies, so women who were in relationships that were not healthy, domestic violence being one of them, and then they'd find out they were pregnant, and then it would make them think, oh my God, if I have a baby within this relationship, when I don't feel safe, is my baby going to feel safe? And they end the pregnancy, but they then end the relationship. So the baby moves them. The babies help us move us in a wholly different direction, a direction that's more, you know, which is more conducive for our soul and for ourselves. So a lot of the time with termination, they're coming in to move us somewhere. They're coming in to give us a massive kick of awareness. And let's face it, it's a horrible experience. I can't imagine anyone having to make that choice. They're not doing it for fun. This is massively traumatic. It's right, and it's right for them, and it's right for the baby, but it's still massively traumatic, because it just brings up all of the stuff that it was meant to bring up. It brings up the I'm bad, no, I'm terrible, I'm being, all of the stuff. And that is the point. The babies come in to lift us, to make us aware of what's going on within us that we might not know, and lift us out of it, and lift us out of situations that are not good for us. So they're coming in to move, but they're also coming in for their own soul purposes as well. They only need to be, they want that connection with you again, or they, it's for their own soul, for their own soul growth as well. But on the whole, it's for their mums. They come in for their mums to go, right, nothing, this situation is not good for you. I love you so much. I'm going to come in, turn your world upside down to the point of you're going to move out of it and get onto what you're supposed to be doing. So it's all with love.
And I mean, that I imagine there'll be people that are listening to this going, because the situation I was in wasn't ideal, and you're speaking into something that I feel as well as, it wasn't serving me, the situation I was in. It wasn't a healthy relationship. It wasn't, I was looking for love in all the wrong places, and it made me realize that actually I deserved better. And I think that is, the fact that that's the gift that I learned personally. I'm sure, I guess it's one of those things where we have to be really honest with ourselves, and that, put aside all judgments from outside, from that external forces that can kind of start like getting into our psyche. But it's almost like once you sit with yourself and you actually really truly understand what you need to do next, it's, that's when it's your choice. That's when it's yours and the baby's choice, I guess.
Yeah, and it's all to empower. It feels very disempowering, and we go through awful stuff afterwards. But if you take responsibility for that stuff, if you allow yourself to be in that stuff and look at it, and then, right, where is that there? Where is that coming from? Because that decision is right. The baby knows that decision is right. The babies, let's empower the babies as well, because the more we're in guilt and see them as victims, they are absolutely adamant on that. We're not victims. We are not victims. So when we're holding guilt towards that, we're holding them in a victim space, and they're like, we're not victims. They absolutely are empowered souls that are, coming in for very, unique reasons for each woman or each family. And empowered. Don't see your babies as victims. They're very empowered. We might see ourselves as the victim. So be curious about that. Victim energy. It's all growth. Everything is growth.
Well, it's reframing, like you say. It's like, it's not happening to us, it's happening for us. And like, I guess it's like, you have to peel that statement back, because there will be things that have happened to people where they feel, like life isn't fair. Why is this happening to me? However, the reframe is, okay, so this has happened. How can I respond to that? And it's about responding differently, isn't it? It's about making that choice. Like you say, it's all about choice, bottom line. We can, all the time we allow it, we're choosing.
Yeah. And I just wrote this line down from one of my channelings, is the repercussions of termination. It is not the punishment and wrath of God. They are, in fact, the blessings of God that allow the age-old wounds of guilt, blame, shame, wrongdoing to be seen and felt, not as a punishment, but as a healing. Because we're living with all these trapped wounds and hurts. So this really is an invitation to look at that, and whether it's that's entirely someone's journey, whether if and when they're ready to do that. But my message, you don't have to stay in that place with it, and your babies absolutely don't want you to stay in that place with it. But it's working through very gently, very lovingly with yourself, so you can feel, all right, that happened, and this is who I thought I was. Now who am I after all of that? And your baby is always with you in that.
And I love the fact that with great sadness and loss and grief that comes with that sort of aspect of motherhood, you also get to deal with the lightness and the lovely part of kind of fertility and babies wanting to stay. Just before we even came on camera, you were talking about a baby that had given a message to the mother around the fact that they wanted to be not the second child? Like there's some lovely little anecdotes you've shared with me. Is there anything you could share with our listeners to lighten the mood a little?
Lighten as we can't, I know, because termination is a massive, it can really, really affect how you then go, conceive in the future, because it can affect all aspects of life, because we can be, this fear of being exposed as a bad person, whether that's going for promotion in your own relationship, or, especially when you're ready and you're ready to welcome your baby. But yes, fertility. Yes. So two recent stories. So one who she came to me a few years ago. So she's got a lovely first child and was preparing for a second child. And the message from her baby was, I know I'm the second child, but I'm not here to play the role of the second child. We all, oh, you're the first child, you're the middle child, you're this, and then we go into these fixed family roles. And this baby was like, I'm not coming in to play the role of the second child. Like they were just feisty, beautiful, amazing.
Sounds like my second daughter.
Yeah, why should they have to slip into that role? And then they were asking the mum and the dad, look at your own relation. These are not the words they used, obviously. How do you feel about your own siblings and how you grew up and what role you played? Start looking, when you're with your healing, start looking at your perception of your siblings and your role. And then I will be free to come in and play my role, without having the expectations of all the roles that we put onto ourselves, because that's how families work. They're coming in to change how families are seen and structure. And literally the week later, after all that, so she's pregnant. Baby is here. And then it's so cool. Sometimes it is those, those tweaks, those messages that come through that hit the spot, that are, this is what you need. This is what the babies show us what we need to know, because they know what they need and they know what they don't need. So they highlight areas for us to shift, or at least be aware that they are going to come in and shift that particular belief or pattern, or heal that family pattern. They're so cool. And another one, she was sharing a past life experience with her mum, where there was a real tragedy, and that baby died in that lifetime, and the mum was holding, of course, massive amounts of trauma and guilt and all of these things. And so the baby was highlighting this past life to heal that trauma, heal that loss, reassure her mum that she was going to be safe in this lifetime, that was not going to happen again. That was not something that needed to be played out, but it was something that needed to be healed, their relationship and their connection with each other. And of course, now she is very much here in the world. Arrived very recently. So it's absolutely fascinating. It's mind-blowing. It might be hard to get your head around, and I'm in absolutely no more shame of sharing their stories. I used to hide fear of judgment, but they're life-changing. Their messages are life-changing. What they're offering us and inviting us to is, it's world-changing. It's personal life-changing, but it really is about how we're seeing the world, and what kind of world do we wish to create. And they're here to help us create a very new way of doing it. So, some women go, what am I bringing my baby into this world? Why would I do that? And they're like, we're coming in to change it. So yes, welcome us, because we're here coming in to change that world, as are you, as the mum.
So powerful. I love it. I absolutely love it. And like the fact that you've got Tara, if you could share with me and the listeners how people can work with you and what you've got coming up, that would be amazing.
So I think this podcast probably won't go out by tomorrow, but I'm running my From Here to Maternity program live. But that's tomorrow, so that's probably not going to be in time. But this is a beautiful journey through the chakras. We hold on to so much, our root chakra. We're born, our crown goes through the root chakra. We're picking up all the stuff that our mums, the insecurities and the fears that our mums were holding. So we're clearing that. So it's just this lovely journey through the chakras. But that's probably going to be about time. But you can join that online. You can work with me one-to-one, and that's like the deepest It's a really kind of gorgeous way of working. So you could have a one-off spirit baby reading if you wanted to connect with your baby, and then sharing, then I share their messages. But I feel it's very important that you have that experience with them, because yes, this is my job, if you like, my role. But I believe everyone can do this. We're just remembering that we're able to connect. And, you know, I don't see why spirit baby communication doesn't continue when our children are born. If anyone's heard of the telepathy tapes, go and listen to the telepathy tapes. My goodness, like, this is absolute proof of telepathy, of connection. So yes, spirit baby readings, and obviously the healing. So one-to-ones, whether that's your own soul plan, your babies, your journey to motherhood, in conception or loss, then yeah, it would be just beautiful to help support you in that.
Well, you know, I could talk to you all day. We have done, but I'm very sorry I have to wrap up today. So I will share how you can get hold of Debra in the show notes, but if you are interested in getting in touch with her, please do. She is very magical, as you have heard. So thank you again for joining me, Debra.
Thank you. Just always gorgeous to hang out. We must meet up in person soon.
We will, absolutely. It's a date. And thank you for listening to Shameless Stories. We'll be back next week with another episode.